Hey everybody, Eric Grenier here with Philippe J. Fournier for this episode of The Numbers. Philippe, how's the last week been for you?
Good morning, Eric. It's good to talk to you as always. I don't know, kind of busy, but also very gray. I mean, a month from now, it'll be spring. And I don't like winter that much. I don't ski anymore.
I like the snow.
Well, I kind of like it, but in December and then in mid-February, I'm just sick of it. I don't know. It's great, but spring is just over the horizon, and now because of global warming, spring comes early. So there's at least a silver lining right there. I mean, the wildfires have started in Canada, so
there you go.
There you go.
It's
that's
the
not
traditional
good,
start of the wildfires.
Oh, God.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, if the okay, how about we take a more positive approach? Spring is blooming, or it could bloom, and if you're a New Democrat, maybe you're thinking that the flowers are coming up orange for you. We don't have a lot of numbers at the federal level to talk about this week. There is only the Nanos poll that comes out every week. It's the 4-week rolling poll.
Yeah.
But Nanos, in its little write-up of it, it put out just the top lines. They keep the regional numbers paywalled, so we'll do that too for the most part. But it had 41% for the Conservatives, 24% for the Liberals, 22% for the NDP, and said the NDP and the Liberals are within the margin of error of each other. This is actually going to be a little bit of a theme for this podcast. It's this race for second place among various people. So, is there a race for second place federally?
Well, that's the thing. If we look at the polls of... I mean, polls fluctuate, and that's normal. I will not chastise any pollster if their numbers go up and down a little bit, because that's entirely normal. It's also a healthy sign. Statistics works like that. When you have a pollster that's too consistent, something's happening here. But if you look at the past 2 months of federal polling, if we remove Nanos research, just take Nanos research out, 18, 20, 16, 20, 20, 20, and 18. So to have 22 is fine.
Yeah.
It's not outrageous. I think it reaches a point where it catches the eye when you have the NDP and the Liberals so close to each other. But in terms of seats, I don't know. The NDP is strong also where the Conservatives are strong. The NDP doesn't have the strongholds that the Liberals do, even though the Liberals are down in the polls. They've been down for 6-7 months now. So right now there's no race in terms of seat. There could be, but it's far too early to tell, right? My average has the NDP at 19%, which is, again, within range of what Nanos has. But what do you think? I mean, do you see a real race for second place with the numbers that we have now?
Not really. We did see a poll it was again from Nanos, I think, although we might have also seen one from Abacus now that I'm thinking about it, where we've had the NDP and the Liberals within a point or two. So this isn't the first time. And if you remember also the over-under contest we did, one of the ones that I did was whether we'll get two pollsters that have the NDP ahead of the Liberals. Hasn't happened yet.
Nope.
And for, early January, it seemed like the Liberals were getting back up to 25, 26, 27, where it seemed very unlikely that the NDP would be able to catch it, even in a poll, and even if it was only because of like a fluctuation in the margin of error.
Yeah.
But now that the Liberals are back down to the 24, you are going to have a couple polls, I think, where the NDP is going to be in spitting distance of the Liberals. But if there is an actual race for second, nationally, I don't think so, because I think that for the NDP to get to the numbers where they pass the Liberals, the Liberals got to be really low, and the NDP starts to have to get new numbers that they haven't seen before. But if we're looking at this regionally, I think there is certainly a race for second, sometimes in Ontario, maybe a little bit more. And out west, there isn't a race for second.
No,
the NDP
second.
is in second, right? So it all depends on what you're looking at. And so I think that'll be something to watch, especially over the next little while. If we continue to see numbers like this, and we have a poll, again, primarily because of the fluctuations in the margin of error and the sampling, and it's a completely normal thing. But if we start to see polls where the NDP is at 22 or 23, and the Liberals are at 21, 22, does that suddenly change the narrative? And then you have the bandwagon effect that the NDP is always hoping to get, that if they get ahead of the Liberals, then all the Liberals will get behind them to block the Conservatives. That would be the thing I would be worried about if I was a Liberal strategist. That while I don't actually think the NDP is really chasing me for second, that if it gets into the public mind that the NDP is now second, then there could be some trouble, I think, for the Liberals in that case.
We see favorables and unfavorables that are really, really poor for Justin Trudeau. And Jagmeet Singh usually is around the even mark, right? Maybe +2 or -1, around the even mark. And yet, NDP surpassing the Liberals has not happened. So, many, many Canadians really dislike Justin Trudeau and are lukewarm at best for Jagmeet Singh, and that number unless when I see numbers that are shooting up like Jack Layton did a decade ago, the NDP is not overtaking the Liberals for second place nationally. You said two things. You said spitting distance. Is that a real thing? Is that a real saying? Okay, that's disgusting. That's disgusting. But okay, sure. But you mentioned abacus data.
They're close enough that you can spit on them. That's what it
gross.
Means.
Post-COVID, you can't say that
Anglophones are
anymore.
gross. What do you want me to say? It maybe comes from when you would have like spittoons in the frontier towns or something.
Yeah. But you mentioned abacus data. I have all the numbers, and abacus data has been polling a lot in the past 8 months, like every 2 weeks, sometimes even more.
Yeah,
often
they've become, I think, the most active pollster after Nanos. Nanos does have a lot of other polls. They do a lot of issue polling for the Globe and CTV, and they usually have like 1 or 2 a week. Yeah. But in terms of voting intentions, Abacus seems to be the one polling the most right now.
So I see I'll read to you Liberal and NDP from Abacus. Okay, so 24-18, 25-20, 24-18, 27-19, 23-19, 24-20, 25. So I don't see a gap smaller than 4 points. You could say 4 points is within the margin of error, but not when it's consistently 4 points on the same side, right? Yeah. So I don't know. Léger hasn't seen the NDP within spitting distance of the Liberals either. So it's fluctuations. I need more data to say that there's a danger. Also, again, we mentioned this before. Half the NDP caucus right now is in BC. The numbers in BC are not that great for the NDP. They're polling above the Liberals, but the Conservatives have been polling somewhere between 40 and 50% in BC. So the NDP would lose a chunk of that, and then they would have to they're not winning more in Alberta. They're not. They may be with the new map. They may win 1 or 2 in Saskatchewan, right? They'll have their 2 or 3 in Manitoba. Can they win in Ontario? Maybe.
They can take up some Liberal spots in Toronto.
In a few of them, but but not a dozen though. They're not winning anything in Quebec. I mean, I know I've seen some mapping of individual polls that have the NDP winning multiple seats in Quebec. I live here. I don't see it. Could they win Halifax maybe in the Maritimes, or take back St. John East? Maybe, but you're not. If you lose half your caucus in BC, it will be very hard to compensate that. So net gains. I mean, how do you get the NDP to 50 seats or even 45? Not with current
you
numbers.
Probably need to take something, I think. Maybe some sort of hallucinogenic but
well, next time I see you, man, I have contacts. I know people.
In the for the NDP in BC, like they have 2 seats in the interior. Both of them look really, they've one in the north, one in the southern interior. Those 2 look pretty tough to hold. And then actually Vancouver Island, right? Which provincially is very strong for the NDP and has been federally for the last little while. But in, the Harper years, Vancouver Island had some conservative MPs, right? And you look at a lot of those seats now, pretty much all of the seats outside of Nanaimo and Victoria could become conservative seats on the island of Vancouver. And then what you got left is, or Vancouver Island, not the island of Vancouver, but what you have left are NDP in Victoria, downtown of Vancouver, Burnaby, places like that, New Westminster. And then, like you said, Toronto, Halifax maybe, St. John's maybe, couple seats in Montreal, Maybe they hold on to a Hamilton. Well, maybe Laurier Saint Marie.
Oh,
they
come
could
on.
take that
Not
one.
in the new map. Not in the new map. You
probably not.
ran
Maybe
down
not.
the
You're
numbers.
right.
You see,
That's
you know
right.
that Laurier
Okay.
Saint Marie has changed. It has lost a part of Outremont, which was orange,
Yeah.
and it's taking Old Montreal, which is red. So,
Yeah.
and Jack
anyway,
Meeting is not winning in Quebec. I'm sorry, it's not.
Okay,
happening.
well, my point being, though, is that the caucus that would be left
Right.
would be very downtown urban.
Yep.
And their seats that they have in Northern Ontario, the seats that they have in BC that aren't in Vancouver or Victoria
danger.
suddenly are conservative. That changes the complexion of the NDP in a way that is probably not good for them in the longer term. So that, I think, is a problem for the New Democrats, that while they might not lose that many seats in the aggregate, like net,
Yeah.
like I can still see them winning 20 seats. It's just that they would end up with half of them being new MPs and having lost maybe 10 or so of their current MPs. And if you're a current MP, that sucks for you. So maybe you don't want to go to a campaign.
And so you, in the aggregate, you keep your caucus about the same size, but you have a massive conservative majority in front of you. So you've lost all your influence, or almost all your influence, at the House of Commons. And by the way, just to make sure, I know some of our listeners sometimes are wary, that we sound so definite. I'm not saying it will never happen, but Jack Meeting has been there for 6 years now. Is that right? 2018?
7. Well, it's coming on. Well, it'll be 7 at the end of the year. Yeah.
Okay.
2017. Yeah.
What have you seen from him that tells you that he could have an orange crush? Not an orange crush, but even getting to 27% nationally.
He's never really had a moment when he was polling that well. This is probably the moment that he's been polling the best when you think about it.
Well, yeah.
20%? Hitting 20%? He hasn't done much better than that.
And as you just said, the NDP caucus would probably remain almost the same in size, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, but the Liberal caucus would be cut in half, and yet you don't reap the benefits of that. That's awful if you're the NDP. And so I'm not saying it will never happen. We rely on the numbers. We're data people, but the data right now is showing that there's no improvement despite the Liberals being in a really bad place. And if you can't overtake the Liberals now, if you're the NDP, when will it happen? Michael Ignatieff is not coming back. So, and neither is Jack Layton, by the way. Yeah.
You mean he won't come back for us?
Man, he would give good
But like in
content,
early
though.
2011, Jack Layton did not seem like he was about to become the official opposition leader. So, but lots of New Democrats will reference that. And while it's true that happened in 2011, they went from being in a lot of trouble in early 2011 to really well just a few months later.
Yeah.
Catching lightning is not something you can plan on happening. That's not the strategy. The strategy would be like, we'll have the once-in-a-century breakthrough again. You can't plan for that when you have no real indication that it's coming. It's just that, sure, in the realm of anything can happen, which is the laziest form of political analysis you can have, there's got to be some reason for it, and we're not seeing it right now.
I think I've told this story before, maybe to you only, but I don't think I mentioned it on a podcast, and I will now. Earlier this week, we celebrated the 16th anniversary of a game that I attended at the Bell Center, a Habs game that I attended. And during that game, in a second period, it was 5-0 for the Rangers. And I turned to my friend, like, you want to get out of here? Let's go to a bar downtown. Let's go grab a beer. And my friend said, well, let's wait until the end of the second period, then we'll see. And then the Habs scored twice before the end of the period. And you know what? The Habs came back from down 0-5, and they won in the shootout 6-5. It was the greatest comeback the Habs have ever done. That comeback happens once in a century. So
most of the time, you're good to leave the arena.
If you play the odds, if you go by the numbers, I could have left that night and grabbed a beer, and I would have said, oh my God, I can't believe I left the game. I didn't because of my friend, but that happens once in a century. So please, New Democrats, stop taking 2011 as a precedent. It was a fluke. I know it's a feel-good story, and it was a feel-good story. It was amazing. But also, Jack Layton, you remember this, Jack Layton was not polling well in voting intentions, but in personal numbers, he was really high. He was appreciated by many Canadians. He was the leader you want to have a beer with. He was the leader. I think there was who among the leaders do you want to be your son's hockey coach or something? I remember those polls.
Yeah.
They were really interesting, and it was Jack Layton across the board. So there was potential there. There's not that with Jack Meeting. So again, if it happens, I'll eat my words. We're people of numbers. If it happens, I'll be wrong, and I'll admit that I'll be wrong. I don't feel that I'm wrong right now. And during a campaign, I mean, Jack Meeting had 2 campaigns. Did he impress anybody? I don't know. The numbers don't bear that out.
All right, let's move on to... I wanted to at least address some of these because they've been news for the last little while, and it feels like we should probably at least talk about them. So... in the context of the NDP not passing the Liberals, I mean, things have been happening for the Liberals that have been kind of rough for the last little while. There was the whole issue with the ArriveCan app, which was supposed to cost something like $80,000 at first, and then ended up being $60 million. Oops. And there's lots of questions about the contracting firm that was being used. And then there was also the controversy, which is, it does seem to be primarily one that was outside of Quebec, with Stephen Gilbo saying that they weren't going to pay for new road projects, and then having to clarify that he meant big projects that don't have, public transport aspects included in it. Anyway, it got a lot of attention. I'm curious if you think anything of these two kind of controversies that's happened over a little while, and whether they have any impact, especially the Gilbo ones, because there's been discussion of whether his importance in Quebec is one of the reasons why he's staying on as minister.
According to the Léger barometer that he does twice a year now, half of Quebecers don't know who Gilbo is. So he may be a big-time player for the Liberals in Quebec among those who vote for them, and among the political nerds like you and I. Among the general population, he's not incredibly well known. However, that's beside the point. I think those two controversies, well, they're very different. One, I think, is clumsy, and the other one is scandalous. The ArriveCan app...
Wait, you're talking about the roads? Yes. This is a scandal, isn't it? Right?
The ArriveCan app, I mean, I'm not an expert, and I will not pretend to be one, but to have a government app with like a high level of security because it has sensitive data that can be done with less than $1 million, that's insane. But $60 million, like, oh, okay, that's a huge
also
problem.
Insane. Yeah.
It could be, the problem could possibly not be political, but with the civil service, right? We don't know that, but I mean, if it happened under any other government, the government would eat some criticism. The Gilbo comments did not... I mean, I see the outrage in places of the country, and I understand, but it was more clumsy than anything. Because in Quebec, we're aware of this policy. It's not new. It's, I mean, the troisième lien, the third link between Quebec and Lévis, the feds were always crystal clear on this, that they will not fund a major project like that, like a major highway, like a bridge or a tunnel, if it doesn't have any component of a public transit. And, the various versions of the troisième lien, sometimes they had like a place for a train or a light rail train, but the feds were very clear on that. So it's not new. And one could say those big, massive projects, if you want to build a huge bridge to link communities, the feds could go, yeah, we will help you, but we want transit in there, not just cars. I don't see that as being highly controversial, but that's not Gilbo said. Gilbo was clumsy and maybe it was clear in his head. It was not clear the words that came out of his mouth.
So 2 things. One with the ArriveCan. Everything that we know up to now is that it did not involve political players. It was a civil servants kind of thing. But I don't know if that really matters. No. It would be worse if there was a signature from a minister who then has to resign and was giving money to his buddies, that kind of thing. Obviously, that would be worse. But I think that the government's numbers, their trust numbers, are just so low right now that this kind of just gets added to the pile.
That's right.
It was one of the things that was the problem with Stephen Harper's government in the last couple of years, is that each of the little things that happened wasn't enough on its own to defeat the government, but it was the accumulation of all of these things that start to get added to the pile of problems that the government has had. So I think that's really more the danger for the Liberals right now. But for Gilbo, the thing I wanted to talk about, though, is the notion that one of the reasons why this minister who has stepped in it a few times is kept on, right? So my kind of theory with it, one is that I don't think the Liberals have in the past booted that many ministers simply for political reasons. I guess you could say they did with Marco Mendicino, but generally they'll stick by their people up to a point, especially if they're seen as kind of on the team. But I agree with you that Stephen Gilbo himself is not super well known. I'd say though that 50% still knowing any political figure is not bad. Yeah. But if there was an environmentalist in Quebec that was well known, it would be him, right? Because of his history with Equiterre and other organizations in the past. Yeah. Demoting Gilbo, I don't think that the problem would be for the Liberals that he is super popular, because in that barometer, the barometer that Léger does, he had about the same amount of positives and negatives.
That's right.
But I think it would be the symbolism of jettisoning someone who is known to be a climate change kind of champion, environmentalist from the government, largely because of critiques in other parts of the country, and that it suggests that the Liberals don't care about the environmental file because the environment still polls pretty well in Quebec compared to other issues. And I think that is the issue, that if the Liberals decided to boot Gilbo out of the cabinet, that it would be a signal that the Liberals don't actually care about the environment and will sacrifice Quebec on the altar of, Western oil interests, things like that. That would be the kind of the narrative of it. And I think that would be the risk for the Liberals, that one of the things that is still keeping them up in Quebec, that one, they have a significant representation from Quebec ministers and are so kind of a voice of Quebec, and that they are at least doing something on the environmental file. I'm not sure what they would have left if they lost those two things in Quebec.
I'll push back on this, though. Because
go ahead.
I'm
putting out the argument.
Yeah.
The conventional wisdom, and you tell me what's right, what's wrong.
What you are describing is a government that places optics in front of policy and good governance. Like you're saying that they keep Gilbo because it would look bad for a little while.
Are you suggesting that the Liberals are not overly concerned with optics?
Well, maybe that's part of the problem, right? I don't want to do too much editorializing. I'll go back to the numbers. I think if they drop Gilbo, it would be a story for a week, and then we would move on. But the poll that I mentioned, the Léger barometer, where half of it was Quebec only. It was. I think that number is far lower in Canada. Maybe now many conservatives across Canada know him, but he's been in cabinet since day one, right? He was at Patrimoine first.
They didn't put him in environment at first. Yeah,
but he's still been in cabinet from day one, and half of people in his own province don't know him. I don't know. The Liberals may be caring too much about optics here, but the numbers say that he's not a star. He's not a star. They could get rid of him. It would be a story for a week, but we'll see.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, anyway, some issues the Liberals continue to have, some problems, and when you're not doing well in the polls, any issue is a bit of a it just adds to it, right?
I think that's enough federal numbers, man. We should go into some. We had some provincial numbers this week that I think are very interesting. Where do you want to start?
Well, we'll start with Ontario, just because we did have some numbers there. So this was a poll from Palace Data that had 35% support for the Progressive Conservatives, 32% for the Ontario Liberals, 22% for the NDP, 7% for the Greens. 3-point gap between the PCs and the Liberals.
Interesting.
My base position when it comes to Ontario polling is plus or minus 5. No matter what the margin of error is, I'm not sure.
What do you mean plus or minus? For one party? From one poll to another?
All of them. I just, I don't find that Ontario election polling between election campaigns is very revelatory. I think a lot of people, as you have often commented on this podcast, in Ontario, do not pay that much attention to provincial politics.
Yeah, sorry. Okay.
Yeah. So it makes me wonder, when we see movement, is it a real thing? Is it influenced by federal? Although 32%, the federal Liberals would love that number. They haven't seen that in Ontario in a little while.
Yeah.
Anyway, what were your comments? What were your thoughts on this poll?
Well, okay, so...
After I've really kind of pooped all over it, but yeah.
No. It is. I mean, it is interesting because they go a bit outside of what we've been seeing for 6 years now, right?
Yeah.
The numbers in Ontario have not. I mean, during the pandemic, or just before the pandemic, early in the pandemic, Doug Ford's numbers were not that great.
No.
And then he went back up, and he kept roughly the same level of support in the 2022 election. But Palace data, last time they polled Ontario, it was late September, and they had 33, 27, 27, so 33 for the PCs. So he sees a slight variation within the margin of error. This is a real probabilistic poll, right? Random sampling. The NDP down 5 points, and the Liberals up 5 points. So
Yeah.
statistically, it is a real movement. Now, is it 30 and not 32? Maybe. I think the numbers that we had from Abacus data, it was in January, was 38 for the PCs and 27 for the Liberal, and then 23 for the NDP. So both pollsters roughly agree on where the Ontario NDP stands. But again, if we go by the numbers, statistically, Palace sees a 5-point hike for the Liberals, and diametrically, the NDP goes down 5 points. That makes sense. It kind of makes sense that one party would eat up the support from the other. But
also, I said how one of the themes was the race for second.
Yeah.
I think we can say, at least with some confidence, that the race for second in Ontario does seem to be largely over, at least for now. Ooh. That the Liberals are now the second place party in Ontario, because we have seen the NDP stuck in the low 20s for most, like the poll that you mentioned where the Liberals and the NDP were tied. That's like more of the higher watermark for the NDP over the last little while. So
that's right.
If the Liberals had it as their hope, once they had Bonnie Crombie as their leader, that they could then move into the position where they were the chief alternative to the Ontario PCs, whether or not they're within 3 points, I think we can probably say they've done that they have become the chief alternative to the PCs rather than the NDP.
I agree with you, but I do not have 100% confidence yet, because we may be in the very modest but also real honeymoon for the new leader, Bonnie Crombie.
Sure.
This will feel more real if it's the case in May or June than right now. I think this poll was fielded. It was published right as the Queen's Park started its sitting, so Ontarians had not heard much about their provincial politics in a while. Now we will see how events changed things. I don't know. I have trouble being confident that the Liberals will really keep that up. I mean, we had an over-under on the Ontario Liberals. I believe it was 35%, right? Will they get higher than 35%? Now, there are 32 in this one, but look at the... I mean, if we take out, for instance, Main Street Research poll that was done hours, I mean, literally hours after the Crombie victory, we take that out for a second. So Liberals, 32, 27, 27, 23. That was Abacus data in November. 25, 24, 27. It's not that greater than the NDP, but you and I know from their vote efficiency, for the Liberals' vote efficiency, it is much greater than the NDP when you surpass the 27% mark.
Yeah,
like in the last election. They
had tipping point, for them.
Yeah, exactly. They had both 24%. The NDP won official opposition. They were, 31 seats, I believe, and the Liberals at 8. But if the Liberals go back to 27 or 28%, they could easily surpass the NDP because of their vote efficiency. So this
there were a lot of ridings where they were within 10 points or so of the PCs, right?
That's right.
So once you have this kind of swing, which would be a swing of +8 for the Liberals and -5 for the PCs, then you got a lot of seats that can swing. But then kind of push those numbers apart again by 2 or 3 points, and then the Liberals fall back behind the NDP in seats.
So I updated my projection, and you did not tell me this, and we didn't talk because, again, we were both busy this week. You updated your projection for Ontario, independently of mine, and mine independently of yours. And we're close.
There's consensus.
So I have the PCs at 60 seats, so just below the threshold for majority. However, I stressed that the PC confidence interval got much wider than it was in months past. That's because of the Liberals. The Liberals eating slowly into PC support and also taking some NDP support along with it makes the uncertainty of the Progressive Conservatives much wider. So I have the OLP at official opposition at 35 seats and the NDP at 25, the Greens at 3 seats. Although the third one, still a big if at Paris Sound Muskoka. Is that how you say
Muskoka.
it? Muskoka. Okay, I say Muskoka, but anyway. I mean, Paris Sound Muskoka, the Greens were 5 points away from the PCs, which makes it within range. But there was no OLP candidate, right? So we'll see how that goes. We'll have to adjust there. And the independent, I now forget which riding it was, but do you know?
She's in Haldimand, Norfolk.
Okay, yeah. I have no reason to think. We have no local data, so we have to keep her there. So
you kind of always have to assume the independents are fine. And my numbers were 61 PC, 35 Liberals, 24 NDP, 3 Greens, 1 independent. So we only had you had 1 more seat for the NDP because you're really big on the NDP, and I had 1 more seat for the PCs because I love Doug Ford. So that's the secret sauce. People don't realize this, but we give extra seats to the parties that we like because we think it matters.
So clearly, I'm a pro NDP here. Yeah. Okay. You stole my line.
25 seats versus 24. I mean, come on.
I received a lot of angry comments on social media saying people.
What?
Yeah, I know.
Social media angry
comments.
People
are so mean. They said I was really down on the Ontario NDP and that my analysis was not always sticking to the numbers. To which I respond. Well, I didn't respond because it's social media. Who gives a you know what? But I mean, what set of numbers are you using to see the NDP potentially taking power in 3 years at Queen's Park? Like, show me those numbers because I haven't seen them. Like the NDP has a good solid base. They don't seem to be able to go beyond that. Like, show me your numbers that prove that I'm wrong on this, and I'll listen. I'll be open-minded.
Show us the numbers. Yep. Show us the numbers.
Show us the. All right. Okay.
Another race for second. See, I've got a theme here because I already established what my title will be for the podcast, so I want to try to run it through the thread. For being the leader of the second place party in Alberta, the NDP has a leadership race coming to an end on June 22nd.
So fast. I love it.
Oh, it is, yeah. So there was a poll that was done by Polera. Dan Arnold, who's a friend of the RIT podcast.
Great guy.
Yes. And he did a poll on people's familiarity with the candidates for the Alberta NDP. A lot of people don't know the main candidates, which I think is probably the first takeaway, which isn't a shocker because most people generally don't know anybody beyond party leaders and mayors and things like that. So there's 3 candidates that are official candidates right now. So there's Sarah Hoffman, who was a deputy premier in the Notley government, Kathleen Ganley, who was a cabinet minister as well in the Notley government, and Rocky Pancholi, who was first elected in 2019. So she didn't sit in a government with the Alberta NDP. 64% of people had never heard of Pancholi. 58% had never heard of Ganley. 43% had never heard of Hoffman. And if we're just looking at the people who said they know who this is and a few things about them, 23% for Hoffman, 9% for Ganley, 7% for Pancholi. The wild card would be former Calgary Mayor Naheed Nenshi. He is well known. Only 24% of Albertans say they have never heard of him. 51% say they know who he is and a few things about him. It's still not clear if he's going to get in the race or not. I don't find these numbers shocking, and they don't really tell us too much about the race itself because party members are going to decide, not Albertans. But it does show that if it is one of the three contestants that are currently in the race who ends up becoming the leader, they're probably not going to get a big bump. It reminds me of Marit Stiles with the Ontario NDP. Somebody who's not very well known becomes a leader, no honeymoon. Yeah. That would be a bit of the risk, I guess, for the New Democrats if they went with one of the three contestants that are currently in the running.
Although the fact that there is a race, I mean, let's say Mr. Nenshi doesn't go. The three others are not very well known. Ms. Hoffman is well known, more known than others.
Better known, yeah.
Better known, yeah. But there will be a race, and the race will be in the media, and then it will get her some excitement. They will sell cars, which is what Marit Stiles didn't have, which I think in hindsight really hurt her. I mean, like a lot of Ontarians have no idea who she is. But enough about Ontario. Let's talk. I mean, if Mr. Nenshi jumps in, isn't that exactly what the NDP would need, though? Somebody who has not been, at least in the past, overly partisan. You cannot say that he's a socialist. Like, I mean, of course they will call him that, and based in Calgary. Isn't that electorally exactly what the NDP needs? I'm not sure. Those who have a lot of baggage with the NDP or history with the NDP, naturally, those are the people usually that become leaders because they've been with the party so long. But they couldn't do it even with 44% of the vote in the last election. They need something else. They need a boost. And if Mr. Nenshi decides to go, he will be a force to be reckoned with.
Well, he would give the Alberta NDP immediate kind of credibility.
Yeah.
The other three leaders or contestants, if they won, would have the time to build that credibility between now and the election in 2027. But I would expect if Nenshi won, that the first polls we'd see in late June, early July, the NDP might be leading in Alberta or be within a couple of points. They would get a bump out of it. And I don't know if that would happen with any of the other three. But whether he's on paper, it would seem like the answer, someone who's won in Calgary, someone who's from Calgary, someone who might not seem too much of a New Democrat, so it might not be too off-putting to other, more centrist voters who didn't vote for the NDP in the last election. But he is, as you said, he does have some. That recognition comes with the baggage of his time as mayor.
Yeah.
He's said a lot of statements in the past. I'm sure he would stand behind them, but that's a lot more material, I suppose, to go on the attack for the UCP. But he at least as a campaigner knows how, has done it before. Has led a campaign. Municipal is not the same as provincial, but on paper he would seem to be electorally the best option for the New Democrats, but in the context of an election campaign, debating Danielle Smith, all that kind of stuff, who knows who actually would turn out to be the best option? Because the other three are experienced politicians and have a lot of kind of talents that they can bring to the table, which is kind of interesting, right? You have three contestants, all three of them come with endorsements from MLAs.
Yeah.
They have a lot of profile within the party. Like you said, it is going to be a competitive race. You wouldn't be shocked if the first ballot was 34-32-30 or something, right? So
that's right.
Is
it a ranked ballot? I didn't follow this. Yeah, it is. Okay, that's
yeah,
good.
Yeah. So you will need to have that kind of. And it is a one member, one vote kind of thing.
No regionals.
I think they have some limits in terms of some ridings, if I remember correctly, but it's not like what we see with the Conservatives or the Liberals where it's every riding's equally weighted. Yeah. So if you can run up the numbers in Edmonton and Calgary, you can do that, right? So So anyway, some interesting numbers here. But it does show that there'll be a bit of a climb for the three contestants if it is them, once whoever would win, to introduce themselves to voters, which comes with risks, but could also come with some upside.
The fact also that it's a quick race. I mean, we discussed this when we talked about the Quebec Liberals, and we're not talking about that. We don't zip nothing about the Quebec Liberals. No, we don't. No.
What?
No,
like
no,
the
no,
mayor?
No.
What's his name? What's his name?
But the fact that it's a quick race, name recognition falls squarely at the feet of Naheed Nenshi. He's by far the most known, the highest profile, and he's a proven winner. Unlike other, again, Quebec Liberals, no, but he's a proven winner.
Sign up members? Can
he
he sign up
members?
Can he turn that name recognition into membership cards? That's going to be the big question.
Did Mr. Nenshi say, because I saw some of his interviews in the media, and I read, in the newspapers, but he has not announced that he's going on race. He said that he was thinking about it, right?
Yeah. He's still kind of flirting with it.
The deadline has to be soon, though. It'll be so we'll know soon.
March.
It will not spread over years, right? Again, anyway, very interesting. This poll from Polara, people reach out to it. It's very well done. There's a question I see here, page 11. How would Albertans feel if each candidate won? They had the choice of excited, comfortable, frustrated, angry, and none of these emotions. You look at the angry. Nenshi has the highest, but it's only 11%. Frustrated, again, Nenshi has the highest, tied with Hoffman. Again, only 11%. The excited and comfortable, it's respectively 17 and 24%. Again, Naheed Nenshi far, far, far ahead of the competition. If he chooses to join the race, I think it makes it spicier for sure. We'll see. I'm very interested to see where this will go, because you have to think of 2027. Danielle Smith proved during the campaign that she can be very disciplined. We remember what the crazy stuff that Danielle Smith said on her radio show. They're talking about transgender kids and stuff like that. That's again the culture wars and not what the middle of the road people think about every day. Naheed Nenshi that debate between Nenshi and Smith, that will be a spicy one, I think. So anyway, we'll see what happens, but I'm very interested to see where it goes.
Okay, let's get to some questions.
Right.
So, of course, if you're a member of our Patreon, you can take part in our Discord. You can put your questions on the Patreon. So we ask for questions from our members of our Patreon. And of course, you get access to these episodes on Thursdays rather than Fridays, and access to our bonus episodes every 2 weeks. So we got a question from Will Dick, who had this on Patreon, and he actually asked this a week ago, but I wanted to save it because we kind of talked about it. And he said, what is the most likely path, however unlikely it may be, for the NDP to overtake the Liberals in seats in the next election? What are your thoughts?
My thoughts is I will follow the numbers in Ontario. The Conservatives are ranging somewhere between 40 and 45 right now. The Liberals are between 26 and 30, and the NDP is around 20. If Liberal and NDP switch, if the Liberals go down to, let's say, 19 or 20 and the NDP goes up to 25, that means that downtown Toronto will probably go to the NDP, even though the NDP will suffer losses to the Conservatives elsewhere. So this is where, I don't see the NDP gaining much in Atlantic Canada or in Quebec. The Prairies, Manitoba, no. BC, again, the Conservatives are polling well in BC. So the question is, can they win in Ontario because the Liberals are weaker? For me, that's the path.
And for me, the extra path is the Liberals have to collapse in Quebec because, as we said at the beginning, it's hard to get the NDP up to 45, 50 seats, which means that the Liberals have to drop below 40, 35, 30 seats. And if that happens, that probably means they're not doing well in Quebec. So the NDP kind of requires the Liberals to do badly in areas where the NDP is not going to do very well. So it's not just what the NDP does that gets them ahead of the Liberals in the seat count. But Yeah, it's hard to see it because you need to get the NDP up to a high enough number that the Liberals can fall behind.
Yeah.
And it's just hard to do that. We'll stick with the NDP. Pierre Olivier on Discord, he asked, and this maybe you can just answer this. I won't say the name. He said, would this election be the time for Thomas Mulcair to make a politician we shall not name himself and come back to the NDP to argue with Poilievre? Here's my one comment on this.
Okay, go ahead.
Do we remember what Tom Mulcair said about Pierre Poilievre in the Conservative leadership race? That Jean Charest would clean up the floor with him.
Yep, he said that.
So I'm not sure if Tom Mulcair correctly gauges the efficacy of Pierre Poilievre.
I think Monsieur Mulcair was thinking of the Jean Charest 15 years ago when he was. I mean, I still think that Jean Charest was pretty good in the debates. It's just that
he actually was.
He really was. It's just it didn't matter because he was talking to the wrong crowd. The party that Jean Charest used to lead doesn't exist anymore. So, I mean, Jean Charest got crushed. Doesn't mean he was necessarily bad. He was just talking to the wrong crowd. But yeah, Mulcair was completely no. But okay, so Monsieur Mulcair, sometimes I pass him. He does some freelance work for CTV, does analysis for CTV, and I do too. Every time I see him, hey, Monsieur Mulcair, comment allez-vous? And we talk a little bit. He's a super nice guy. He's not going back to politics. No. Ever. He's done.
And the NDP kind of got rid of him, so I'm not sure he wants to go run for him.
Even if they begged for him to come back, he's happy now. I mean, he's beyond politics. It's over. I think it would have been great to see Mulcair in the 19 election. It would have been great if the NDP kept him around. Because I
that would have been interesting, yeah.
But yeah, so for several reasons that we won't get into now, but Mulcair was a great parliamentarian. I mean, he was great in the House of Commons. He was not so great in a campaign, and the NDP turfed him. So it's not happening. So Pierre Olivier, this is a good question, but it's too much of a hypothetical. Monsieur Mulcair is not coming back. He's happy now. So when you get out of politics after a long time, he was in politics for 25 years, early 90s to 2017 or 20. So he's done.
Yeah. Okay. Why don't you read the question? I think I have it highlighted.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you can see it.
Robert on the Patreon asked us, what are each of the political parties' percentage of revenues that come from donations versus percentage from government electoral expenses and reimbursement? And in the case of the Bloc, where you have a party that supports the independence of Quebec and the breakup of Canada, would be interesting to know what part of their funding is coming from the public purse, the Canadian public purse. And so, Eric, that's a great question from Robert. Thank you. And I think Eric used research for this answer. Go ahead.
So how it works is that the per vote subsidy was the last. I think they got rid of it. Maybe it was in 2015. That was the last time it ran out. But anyway. If a party reaches at least 2% of the vote nationally, they get, if I'm not mistaken, 50 or 60% of their election expenses reimbursed. If a candidate gets 10 or 15%, I can't remember what the...
I think it's 15. I think it's 15.
Yeah, it's 15. Yeah. They get 50 or 60% of their expenses reimbursed. So I'm not really sure why. That doesn't make much sense to me. It never did. But if you spend a lot of money and you get support, you get a lot of the money back. That's the way it works.
Wow.
So I went and looked at the last 2 years because this is the annual reports. This is where this information is available. And it depends on the year because if it's away from an election, you don't get any reimbursement. So in 2022, the Conservatives and the Bloc had 100% of their revenues coming from donations, membership signups, that kind of thing. The Liberals and the NDP had 98% and 97% because I think they would have had just some last checks they signed or cashed.
Okay.
But in a non-election year, the reimbursements generally they don't come in, so they don't make up any portion of revenues. But in 2021, when they did get their reimbursements in, it's a lot. So for the Conservatives, 46% of all the revenues they had in 2021 came from the electoral rebates, the reimbursement. For the Bloc, it was 48%. For the Liberals, it was 53%. And for the NDP, it was 58%. So if you amortize that over the course of a 4-year election cycle, then it means that, roughly 10 to 15% of a party's yearly revenues are coming from the election rebates and the election reimbursements. And we should also point out that if you donate to a political party, you get a tax rebate. The last time I checked it was a few years ago, that cost the Treasury something like $20 to $30 million a year. And that's spread out across the parties. So a lot of the revenues that parties get are subsidized by taxpayers, even if we don't have the taxpayer subsidy, the per vote subsidy there anymore. They get it back in the rebates. And as you can see, it can be a lot. And they get it indirectly through the tax rebates that donors get from the government. So there you go.
Yeah, interesting. Let's talk about British Columbia real quick. I have a quiz for you, by the way, but we have a few more questions that are pretty good. So, in a scenario, Sammy asked on the Discord, hi Sammy, in a scenario where BC United and the BC Conservatives form an electoral pact, which doesn't seem likely in a short term, but okay.
No.
Do you think that the BC NDP would still manage to get a supermajority of seats? And what about if BCU and BC Conservatives merge? Well, again,
I think the first thing we should say is not going to happen. There was a tweet, it was Rob Shaw who put it out.
Yeah.
And apparently the Conservatives reached out to the BC United in December and said, hey, do you want to talk about some, alliance, merging, whatever? And the only response they get was F off. And I won't swear because I don't want to have to turn on the extremities or extreme language thing.
I didn't see that.
That was the response. An email response was F off. Or fuddle off. Fuddle duddle off, maybe.
Like
what was
the
said.
animal, the northern animal, the seal, right? In French? Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
that word. Really? Okay, that's
So
kind of rude.
Yeah, a little bit.
You
So
could
anyway,
say no, thank you.
if they decided to get together, then, I think the easy answer is assuming that those people would all stick with them, then you'd be back to a traditional kind of thing. Because the NDP has been in the mid-40s in most of the polls.
That's right.
And so if you add the Conservative and the BC United vote, you also get somewhere around high 30s, low 40s. So
you would have a 2.5 party system like you do in other places. The
in
thing
2017 and in 2013,
to reach the point where two parties, even though they dislike each other, make a pact or decide to merge, you need pain. You need to go through the desert and at some point realize, okay, maybe it's the best course of action. We said that in the late 90s. Why don't the progressive conservatives and the reform just merge? It is like they hated each other. It's like, no, 1997 happened. No, 2000 happened. It's like, okay, well, I guess at some point we'll have to consider it, right? So there hasn't been any pain because the Conservatives just jumped up. The Liberals/United have not suffered the great defeat yet that we expect them to have. After that happens, perhaps they'll start talking to each other, but it's not happening right now. You need more pain.
Mm-hmm.
Fall off. That's funny.
We have another question for an election coming up this year. New Brunswick, Ali Gersoy on the Discord. He said, given the polarization alongside linguistic fault lines in New Brunswick, how can the New Brunswick Liberals break into Anglophone seats? Is it possible for Higgs to maintain a PC majority without winning any Francophone seats? I'll answer just the second part. He did it last time. He didn't really have any Francophone seats, so he can afford to lose even the ones that have minority Francophone, like large minorities in the Moncton area. So you can win with just the Anglophone vote in New Brunswick.
But it's still you have to sweep those.
You got to thread the needle,
because the majority threshold is 25, and Higgs won 27. It's not like he has any comfort zone, right? There's no. So, I think the Liberals will go back to power eventually in New Brunswick because they always do. It's just that the linguistic divide is not new, right? It's been there for
100 years.
Yeah, okay. I wasn't going to say many decades, but since forever, basically.
With some exceptions, but it's been there for 100 years, yeah.
So it's at some point you get tired of government and the numbers go down a little bit, and there is a few swing seats, Moncton maybe, and then you
St. John.
So it's a good question. It's just that don't forget that governments can't last forever, and Mr. Higgs has been there since 2018. 2018? Yeah, 2018.
Yep.
and he chose his camp, as we said. He decided not to be this middle of the road guy trying to reach out across the aisle. He decided not to do that. Sometimes it works, but at some point it also wears down on you. And I think the Liberal leader, she seems to have a good energy, and it will be interesting to see that in a campaign. Younger women with a big smile, and the old Mr. Higgs, who looks a little grumpy all the time. So this is going to be a fascinating case study of contrast.
Yep, and that election's scheduled for October. Everybody seems to believe it's going to happen in the spring, so we'll see. How about now we move to the quiz?
All right. Okay, the quiz. So members of our podcast that had access to the bonus episode last week.
Very special episode.
Yeah, it was a good episode, and I encourage everybody listening to this to sign up for the Patreon to have all our bonus episodes. I had a quiz where I basically offered Eric 4 statements of premiers of the past, and he had to find among those 4 statements which one was false. And it was kind of fun. Eric didn't do very well, but it was hard, to his defense. But we also had a little fun with it. And I chose last week 4 premiers from the most populous province. And so I decided to do a repeat, this exact same quiz, exact same format, but I went with the 4 next most populous provinces. So a premier from Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick. So to win the quiz, you have to pick 3 out of 4 false statements. There's 1 false statement for each. And also, when I say false statement, I mean it contains a falsehood. Because I will try sometimes, the best way to lie, a politician will tell you this, the best way to lie is to squeeze a lot of truth into there, right? So I'm trying to my best here to confuse Eric.
How did I do last week? Did I get 1 or 2?
You got René Lévesque and you missed the other 3. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But it was we had fun. So I figured let's have fun again. Okay, so are you ready, my friend? We are going to Manitoba. And I'm going to talk about a premier, the 20th premier of Manitoba. He was premier from 1999 to 2009, Gary Albert Dewar. So here are the 4 statements. And now, of course, I'm reading because I didn't learn everything by heart. Okay, so.
That's fair.
Number 1. Dewar was elected to the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba in the 1986 provincial election for the Northeast Winnipeg division of Concordia. He joined the government of Premier Howard Pauley. Pauley, yeah. He was given several portfolios such as Minister of Urban Affairs, Minister of Crown Investment, and also Minister of the Liquor Control Act. Number 2.
I believe that is true, although I'll reserve judgment in case you snuck in something like he was responsible for the fish, not for the booze.
Minister of Fisheries, yeah, that's right. Okay, number 2. Gary Dewar holds the distinction as being the only NDP premier in Manitoba to ever win a majority of the popular vote in a general election. Dewar's NDP did so in a 2003 general election, winning just over 50% of the vote and, naturally, a majority of seats in the legislature.
Not sure about that. Okay.
Number 3. Dewar became Manitoba NDP leader in 1988, mere weeks before the April 26, 1988 Manitoba general election, which saw the Manitoba PC win a minority government. The Manitoba Liberals finished second in terms of seat and formed the official opposition. Dewar's NDP won 12 seats and held the balance of power. You think that maybe the NDP and the Liberals could make a deal, but no, Dewar rejected forming a coalition government with the Liberals. Instead, he opted to let Gary Filmon's PC form a government, albeit a minority.
Okay. That again sounds correct, but I'm wondering if you have a little poison pill somewhere in there.
And number 4, during the 1988 election, Dewar was a strong advocate against the federal government free trade agreement with the United States. So 1, 2, 3, 4.
I would think that he was. Okay, see, now I think now I'm not sure because all of them sound true.
Well, that's a trick.
I mean, I don't think Gary Doer would have been against the free trade agreement or for it when the NDP federally was. Oh, man. Did they ever win over 50% of the vote, though? That one I'm not so sure about. I'm going to say that they didn't win over 50% of the vote in 2003.
They won 49.6% of the vote, and so you are correct. The other statements were true. So 1 for 1. All right. You can't win them all if you don't win the first one.
All right.
You're feeling good right now, right?
I don't know. Last week it was rough. Okay.
So you tied last week's score. Okay, we're going to Saskatchewan. Roy John, I always said Romanov, but it's Romano.
Yeah.
Well, thing is, I think Romano is the English way to say it. I think Romanov would be the Ukrainian way to say it because he was Ukrainian.
I would assume so, yeah.
Okay, so 12th Premier of Saskatchewan. He served from 1991 to 2001, but he served as Premier, and during that time, he was actually an MLA for much longer. So, number 1. Romano was born in Saskatoon from his parents who were both Ukrainian immigrants. He spent a large portion of his younger years, however, and early adulthood in Ontario, where he attended Queen's University and earned a BA in political science as well as a law degree.
Okay.
Number 2. Romano has a stellar electoral record. In 9 general elections from 1967 to 1999, he was elected to the Saskatchewan Legislative Assembly 8 times in the ridings of Saskatoon, Riverdale. So 8 out of 9, sorry.
Okay.
Number 3. From 71 to 82, Romano served as Deputy Premier and Attorney General for Saskatchewan. In 1981, Romano, along with Federal Minister of Justice Jean Chrétien, was part of the late-night kitchen accord on the patriation of the Constitution, a deal that was struck without the knowledge of Premier René Lévesque, who had gone to sleep in Hull across the Ottawa River.
Okay. All of this sounds correct to me so far.
And number 4, in the 1999 general election, Romano's NDP won a 3rd consecutive election, but he was reduced to a minority. He also lost the popular vote against the Saskatchewan Party. He had to rely on the support of Liberal members of the legislature to govern. Yes, there were once Liberals in Saskatchewan.
Yeah, once upon a time. Okay, so I do think that they did, but I don't think they lost the popular vote to the Sask Party in 1999. So I'm going to say that was the false one, because I'm pretty sure that Romano was there for a really long time and that he ran against Blakeney, I believe, when Blakeney won the leadership. And so he had a long track record. He was definitely part of the Kitchen Accord. And the other thing, I can't remember what it is, but it sounded true enough. So I'm going to say was that they did not lose the popular vote in 1999 to the Sask Party.
I'm just going to make sure here, because no, you're wrong, but I'm going to just to make sure here.
What, you're already saying I'm wrong?
No, I that's not the one that I... Okay, so yes, the NDP in 1999 lost the popular vote to the Sask Party. 39% for the NDP, 40% for the Sask Party. The false statement was that Romano, yes, was born in Saskatoon, yes, from Ukrainian immigrants, but he never spent that long of a time in Ontario. Did not go to Queen's University. He went to the University of Saskatchewan in Saskatoon. Anyway, so that was crap. I figured since you were a Queen's graduate, you would know that, but okay.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't there at the same time as him. I wouldn't have been.
Okay, you're right. 1 for 2. This one was fun. Because sometimes when I do that research, I find several fun facts, and it's hard to put the false one in there. Yeah, so we're going to New Brunswick. After we'll go to Nova Scotia. So New Brunswick. I chose the most obvious one, Richard Bennett Hatfield.
Okay.
And I really, really wanted to add a line that Bennett was a blood relative of R.B. Bennett, like I did last week with W.A.C. Bennett, but I couldn't find it, and I figured it would be too obvious, so I didn't.
Yes.
So, anyway, although I did get you with that one.
Yeah, you did.
I still don't know what third cousin is, but okay. So Hatfield, sorry. Number 1. Hatfield was born in Heartland, New Brunswick, a town his father, Herbert Hatfield, was mayor of. Just before Hatfield's 9th birthday, Hatfield's father became a Conservative MP in Victoria Carleton in the 1940 federal election.
Okay.
The Hatfield...
That doesn't sound wrong yet.
Okay. The Hatfield family had built quite a bit of wealth in the potato industry. After his father's death, it was Hatfield's brother who was managing the potato shipping and processing operation. It was only when the family sold their potato chip plant to Humpty Dumpty that Hatfield decided to become a full-time politician.
Okay. I know they were involved with potato chips. I'm not sure if they sold it to Humpty Dumpty or anything, but that's so far. Okay, so far, nothing, no red flags.
Okay. Hatfield became interim leader of the New Brunswick PC after the 1967 general election and was elected full-time leader in 1969. He led the party to victory in the 1970 provincial election. He then won majorities in 74, 78, and 82 general elections. In terms of seats, his best election was his last victory in 82 with 39. His worst election was his last one with 0.
Again, that all sounds true.
Okay, number 4. Hatfield's last years in office were plagued by personal scandal. It's September, I didn't write the year, I think it was 86. Sorry, I didn't write the year on my script. In September, I think 86, before a flight from Fredericton to Moncton, the RCMP found 35 grams of cocaine in Hatfield's suitcase during a luggage security check.
All right.
And
that is the false statement.
He was going to the Queen's, Queen Elizabeth II. Okay, why?
Because it was marijuana. It wasn't cocaine.
You are correct.
Yes.
I think in hindsight, we owe an apology to Mr. Hatfield, although he had several. I mean,
there's like a small bag of marijuana in his luggage.
That's right.
And like the RCMP got involved and all this kind of stuff. It seemed a bit over the top. But, you know, that was, I guess, the 80s.
But taking marijuana on a plane, it's like, come on, man. Like, really?
Yeah, but the Queen was there. So,
Who was going to party with the Queen. Anyway, yes, I thought I could. It was not cocaine. It was marijuana. So anyway, okay.
Oh,
you're
see,
right.
Good. Okay, it wasn't a little trick one.
So you have at least half of those. We'll see how well you do with this last one. I chose, I think, one of the most known premiers of Nova Scotia, Robert Lorne Stanfield. Do we say Stanfield or Stanfeld? I heard both. Is
Stanfield.
Stanfield. Okay.
Yeah.
So 17 premier of Nova Scotia from 56 to 67. And also, as you know, from 67 to 76, he was the leader of the federal Progressive Conservatives. All right. Number 1. After earning a Bachelor of Arts degree at Dalhousie University, or as somebody said, Dalhousie University, that's my wife said that, it was a joke, Stanfield then studied at Harvard Law School, where he was an honor student near the top of his class, and he was the first Canadian editor of the Harvard Law Review.
I don't know anything about any of that, so
it must
right
be
now
wrong.
That could be true or it could be false. It's
Number 2.
Schrodinger's answer, yeah.
That's right. Number 2. Robert Stanfield became leader of the Nova Scotia Progressive Conservatives in 48 after the PC's crushing defeat in the 1945 general election, in which the PCs were reduced to 0 seat in the Nova Scotia legislature. That year, the Angus Lewis MacDonald Nova Scotia Liberals won a majority of seats, and it was the CCF that formed the official opposition, despite the CCF being a distant third in the popular vote.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff in there, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
Number 3. From the time Stanfield took over the party in 48 to his departure after the 67 Nova Scotia election, the Stanfield PCs grew their seat count in every single general election. That's 6 elections in a row, 49, 53, 56, 60, 63, and 67. They grew their seat count in every election.
Okay.
And number 4, in 1969, while Stanfield served as leader of the official opposition in Ottawa, he was one of the few PC MPs to vote against the Trudeau government's Bill C-115, which decriminalized homosexuality.
That I don't know either. Oh boy. Okay, wait. The first thing, I have no idea if he went to Harvard and went, so I don't know anything about that. The second one, I doesn't make me think that the CCF ever formed the official opposition to 48, but or did they? And then winning lots of, like, one of the reasons why he won the PC leadership in 67 was that he was seen as a winner. So that kind of rings true. And then the thing in 69, I don't know. So I'm going to say that
it'll be a guess on this one. You have no idea.
A little bit of a guess, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think the CCF formed the official opposition in 48, so I'm going to say that was the false one.
In 48, the CCF won 2 seats and the PCs... wait, hang on.
Suspense.
Whoa. Let me reread the statement just to make sure we understood each other, okay? Robert Stanfield became leader of the PCs in 48 after the PCs' crushing defeat in 45, in which the PCs were reduced to 0 seat in the Nova Scotia legislature. That year, 45,
Right, okay,
the Liberals won a majority of seats, and it was a CCF that formed the official opposition, despite the CCF being a distant third in the popular vote. Just so we understand, it was I'm talking about the 45 election.
Yes.
So
sure.
Are you still saying
I'm still
this
sticking
one?
with it. I'm still sticking with it, yeah.
So no, the CCF won 2 seats and the PCs won 0. So the CCF was the official opposition.
Really? They formed the official opposition in 45?
Well,
wow, okay.
with 2 seats. No, so.
Well, you take it.
It's still, yeah. The false
okay,
one.
so what was the false one?
He was one of the few PC MPs to vote with the Trudeau government to decriminalize homosexuality.
Actually, now that I think about it, I should have probably known that. He's more of a moderate than the rest of the party would have been.
There were 72 PC MPs. 12 of them decided to vote to decriminalize homosexuality. The other 60, they went.
Yeah,
on the
now
wrong side
that
of the
you
street.
say that, I should have got that. I should have thought about that a bit more.
So 2 out of 4. But that was hard. Improvement. The next time,
100% improvement.
We have what we have left. We have PEI and Newfoundland.
There were other premiers in the big
territories.
provinces. You could do
or some prime ministers. I want to go around the country so people just say we don't just talk about Quebec and Ontario.
Okay, if you do territorial premiers, I'm just going to
I won't.
Throw out my hands. I do not know the territorial premiers. I am sorry to say.
So... But how do you say Dalhousie University? Dalhousie? Do you pronounce
Dalhousie.
the H? Dalhousie. Okay, because
Although in Ottawa, the street that is Dalhousie is pronounced here as Dalhousie.
Really?
I don't know.
Okay. Is it the same
funny
guy?
town.
Is it a person, Mr. Dalhousie?
Probably. I can't imagine there was tons of Dalhousies. Doesn't seem like the most common name. Anyway.
Oh well. So again, that was a lot of research. I'm sorry, I felt like my English was tired. I was difficulty reading today, but I hope people had fun learning about this. But Stanfield looked like he was a really good student. Again, a winner. I checked. He went from 0 seat to 8, and then 8 to 12 in 53, and then 12 to 24. And then 24 to 27, and then 27 to 39, and his last election, 39 to 40, and then months after he went to the federal Progressive Conservatives. To increase your seat count
and then I think the PCs lost. And then I think the PCs lost the next election.
Well, they never beat Trudeau, right? Oh, well, they did with
no, in Nova Scotia, I think they lost the next election.
Yeah. So every government comes to an end at some point. So
yeah. Number of the week. What do you got?
Do you remember when we said the CAQ? What could the CAQ? Who will take down the CAQ?
Oh yeah,
CAQ is invincible.
Proud moment for us. All right, let's do the number of the week.
Okay, number of the week for me. It would be the 32%. We mentioned it, but I want to stress it again. The 32% for the OLP and the Palace data poll. I'm not doubting what Palace just measured. It's just we have to wait before we say, okay, the race for second is done. I am not ready to say the race for second is done, but it looks like the Liberals have the edge over the NDP because there's no data that we have right now that shows the NDP has much potential for growth. But I prefer to go on the safe side, on a prudent side, because... it'll take a lot to take down the PC. The PC brand in Ontario is so strong. So we'll see. What about you?
Okay, my number of the week is 59%. So in the Polara poll, it asked Albertans whether they would consider voting for the Alberta NDP, regardless of who the leader is, or depending on who the leader is. So it found that 59% of Albertans said that they would consider voting for the NDP. 25% of them said it didn't matter who the leader would be. 30 and another 34 said it would depend on who the leader is. So 59% for a party that got, I think it was 44% in the last election.
Yeah.
That shows that there is the potential for the NDP to win a majority of the vote in Alberta. But I also just find it interesting that the floor, 25%, is so much higher than what it once was for the Alberta NDP. Before Rachel Notley came in I think the 6 elections before, the NDP would get 9%, 10%, 8%.
Yeah.
Now their floor is 25%. So it shows how much has changed in that province and for that party. So you're never going to hit your ceiling. Never going to get everybody, because if
That's right.
that 34% said it depends on the leader, that means some of them will not like who the leader is. Mm-hmm. But just an interesting number that the Alberta NDP ceiling and its floor is so much different than when it was just 10 years ago.
Regarding that, I know we have to go, but just regarding that, have you heard some people in the NDP saying that perhaps they should rebrand? You've heard about this, right? That the Alberta Yeah, okay. Just look at the BC Liberals. Like, just before you think that you would do better under another brand, just perhaps do some polling and research. Because if you think the federal NDP is dragging you down and the NDP name is hurting you, look at the BC Liberals. Because rebranding is not easy. And it's sometimes very ugly. So I'm just saying, think about that.
And when your brand is polling better than the federal brand, maybe don't assume that people aren't able to separate the two.
That's right.
Jagmeet Singh in the NDP not polling at 40% plus with a 59% ceiling in Alberta.
Oh no! Not even close. Not even half that. So okay.
No. All right, so that'll be it for this week's episode of The Numbers. As always, you can head to our Patreon page at thenumberspod.ca. This is where we put our bonus episodes every second week, where you get early access to our episodes on Thursdays rather than Fridays, and where you can participate in our Discord, which is a discussion forum where people have been sharing lots of stuff. It's now my favorite social media platform.
Really? Me too. Yeah. It's fantastic.
That's where I'm spending more time of my day than anywhere else. So you can do that at thenumberspod.ca, and then you can also watch and listen to our French language episodes, Les Chiffres. Philippe, thanks very much for this week, and we'll speak again next week. That'll be for our patrons-only episode, and so I hope you have a good weekend, and talk to you in 7 days.
Merci beaucoup, Eric. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week.